During this series on spiritual leadership, we've been considering the common shortcomings or failures that people in a leadership position make. We said, first of all, we forget to lead. We forget to take up our leadership responsibilities. Secondly, we forget to follow or to be in submission to the vision and the leadership over us. Thirdly, we can often misuse our leadership position to dominate or control people's lives. And then fourthly, we become so busy with the activity of leadership that we forget to be in relationship with God and invest in our families. Now, once you've got those four nailed, that you're functioning in your leadership role, you've taken up your responsibility, you're diligent. Secondly, you don't have problems with submission and the vision that you're serving, and you're comfortable in your leadership role, you're confident, you're serving people, and you're not dominating or controlling their lives. And fourthly, that you've got your priorities right. You're spending time with God, you're investing time in your family. Once we've got those all covered and those all nailed, the next temptation for us is to be proud and arrogant. So the fifth most common shortcoming is that of pride. Now, Proverbs 16 verse 18 says, "Pride comes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before the fall." We that stand must be careful that we don't fall. We need to guard our hearts against pride and arrogance. Now, pride can manifest in various ways. The most common way is independence. Independence is based in pride. Now, when I talk about independence, I don't mean independent in terms of maturity. But when you become independent of God, when you think you can do things without God, or independent of other people, then that is based in pride, and that is a slippery slope to destruction. Now, the manifestations of pride we see in the fall of Satan. In Isaiah 14 verse 13 and 14, we read the following. Satan said, "I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of the assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Zion. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High." In that passage, in five times, Satan says, "I will, I will, I will." And the message says, "I'll take over as king of the universe." Independence is based in pride. And we know how we spell sin. Very basically, S-I-N. And pride, P-R-I, capital I-D-E. And the same with selfishness. I, right slap bang in the middle. When we become independent of God and others, that's pride. Another way that independence manifests, of course, is in secretivity. Doing things independently and in secret and not including other people. If you're doing anything in an exclusive, secret way behind doors, you need to examine your heart whether that's not based in independence and pride. So we have to guard against independence. Second way pride is manifest is in presumption. To presume on the provision and the blessing of God, rather than in humility asking God to bless you, to presume on God's blessing. Presumption is based in pride. One of the temptations that Jesus went through, one of the three, was presumption. The enemy told him to stand on the pinnacle of the temple and to throw himself down, and God would send his angels to catch him, because the word of God says that he will not let your foot be bashed against the stone. And then, of course, Jesus responds and says, "It is written that you should not tempt the Lord your God." Now, the temptation there was to presume on God, for Jesus to jump and presume that God would catch him or send his angels to protect him. Now, we can often, as leaders, get into that position where we've seen God's blessing, we've seen God's guidance, and then to do things without inquiring of God. And often we jump, we do things, and then God has to bail us out because we've done that contrary to God's purpose and God's plan. Now, Jesus, of course, is our example of humility. He didn't do anything he did not see the Father do or hear the Father tell him to do. So we need to guard our hearts against independence. We need to guard our hearts against being presumptuous and doing things without first inquiring of God. Another manifestation of pride is pretense. To pretend that things are okay when they're not okay. To pretend that we're functioning well spiritually when we know we're not. That's why it's very important for us to, in humility, be in interdependent and accountable relationships with other people, where we can be open and be accountable. And if you're not in that kind of relationship, if there's not one or two people around you that you can be open with and accountable with and be protected, then you need to find those people and in humility submit yourself to them. So guard against independence, guard against presumption, and guard against pretense, pretending that you're okay and that things are fine when they're not. Galatians 6 verse 7 says the following: "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatever man sows, that will he also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of his flesh reap corruption, and he that sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap life everlasting." So if we sow pride and arrogance, we're going to reap destruction. Pride comes before destruction. But if we sow humility and interdependence and being dependent on God, we're going to reap life everlasting. James 4 verse 6 and 1 Peter 5 verse 5 says this: "God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble." Now there's enough things resisting us that we can't afford for God also to resist us. Let's humble ourselves before God and allow God's grace to be activated over our life. God bless you as you guard your heart against pride and walk in humility before Him.